Hello everyone, my name is Bhakti and I welcome you all to this webinar, Remote Monitoring in the Era of Pandemic. At our company, we make sure to deliver exquisite services to our clients and maintain the quality of work that we stand for. Today in this webinar, we will be discussing the technical and fundamental aspects of IoT-enabled technologies in various sectors and then a quick Q&A session. Let us first take a peek into this message giving video. So that's the power of Internet of Possibilities. I would now like to introduce Sandeep Parira, who would be covering the much awaited topic, remote monitoring in the era of pandemic. Sandeep is the founder and MD of Altorum Leren. He is a really experienced executive with an experience of nearly 2 decades in domestic and international operations, startups, growing companies, and working across multiple countries and cultures. He carries a mission to create an environment that empowers enterprises to realize positive business outcomes. But before I invite Sandeep, I request our audience to take part in a quick poll. And your time starts now. Come on, everyone. We request that our attendees please participate in our poll. So we are receiving really nice responses. And time up. So these are the results of the responses. So 20% have voted for customized app-based solutions for your business, 20% for substandard service provider, and 60% for all of the above. Thank you everyone for your responses. I would now like to invite Sandeep. Sandeep, over to you.
Thank you, Bhakti. I'll present my desktop. First of all, thank you very much for joining here to the webinar. Maybe can you tell me about yourself? Which background you belong, so that the examples which I'm going to present for IoT, which will help you in your in your domain of expertise, so that that will help me to
Write in our chat. We will be answering according to what Sandeep said. Please everyone write in the chat. We have one pharmaceutical field.
For each of these parameters, you can define, for example, if there is a blast furnace, you can define that if a temperature goes to a certain degree, right, alert or alarm can be raised. Or let's suppose if it is a pharma industry, the things have to be kept in a moisture free or in a particular temperature, otherwise it will not work. That means that information also can be captured, and an alert or notification can be sent. You can have different kinds of analytics, right? That's also possible that in that way. So now you're getting the data, right? Data is coming from actual from the left hand side, from the actual plant, traveling through the cloud, and it's reaching into your mobile app or web app anywhere in this world. that's not only, that's a one way travel, but let's suppose, you know, yeah, in a pharma industry, you need that the drugs has to be manufactured where the temperature should range between a certain values, and you get an alert that, you know, it's deviating from the range what is needed. You can give an instruction from the mobile phone, right, which again travel in the opposite direction, like from the cloud it goes to IoT gateway, it goes to PLC, and then PLC gives an instruction, so that, you know, it can manage us. It's very similar to, you know, when you have an AC, right, it can, you can adjust the temperature based on the feedback what you get. So this is how, you know, a typical context setting for how remote monitoring works. That means you setting, if you are a supervisor, you are an owner of the company, and you are responsible for multiple things, you are a technician, whoever you are, you can use this same mechanism. You can get all the information, and not only, for example, the health data of all the devices and the factories, but also production related information. Let's suppose if it is a uh, car manufacturing or car assembly plants, how many production are happening, everything you can get it in your fingertip by using this methodology. Now, of course, you can see the writing back. Writing back means you can give an instruction, so that's also possible. Bhakti, can you run it? Okay. Let me start with my webinar.
Yes,
So
yes,
what
okay.
we are going to present is that just giving a short introduction about what does remote monitoring means, introduce you with what does remote monitoring means, some technical terms. But in case, let's suppose you have any questions, please don't hesitate to, ask questions. We will also tell you more about what is predictive maintenance, preventive maintenance, and what are the benefits of those things. And then we will have a question and answer session. Now, what does remote monitoring exactly means in the context of an IoT? You must be knowing about the, pandemic, what has been happened. um, you have factories, you have, plants, you have your fleets running, right? When there is a pandemic and there is a lockdown, it's very difficult to, either you have to shut down your work completely, right? And you cannot work uh, or manage things sitting in your home. So there it is very important that, remote monitoring plays a very important role, where remotely you can see, your plants are working properly or not. uh, or, if certain action has to be taken, your the health of your factories and the machines, the health of the workers also, that's also possible to know. Production data, that's also important to understand. Now, so there are a lot of opportunities in which we can have, remote monitoring possibility. I'll give you some of the typical examples where, how, few use cases and the benefits of it. Now, before we go into the different use cases, I will give you a context setting of of a video where you will understand how remote monitoring in a very simple way, right? You can understand how it works. uh, you know when you start from the left hand side, it can be any context. For example, it can be a transportation industry, it can be an utility industry, it can be an agriculture, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, whatever is there. Now we have, you know uh, there is a lot of progress in recent times where you have got nanotechnologies, and the sensors and the actuators have been, there are a lot of hardware's innovation possible. So what happens is that, taking an example, the first one from the left hand side, if you can see on the top, there is a robot, right? Those robots are running based on certain logic or certain programmings which are being made, right? So it may pick something, it can modify something, there is a fixed set of works which has been done, right? And there is a program which is running. And there are sensors which can know that the health of those robots, and also know you can control it, although most of the time it is programmed, and it runs based on that program. Similarly, on the third, you see that there is a trolley, which is mainly used for carrying CNG. There also you can have, various devices to know the speed of it, the current location of it, geofencing, many things are there, right? So based on this information, various sensors and the devices, and together with 4G or 5G, what we have, what we can do is that we can collect data. Not only collect, but you can send an instruction. Although it has been shown at one side, you can see the data which is going to PLC. Now what is PLC? PLC is also a device, programming logical control. That means those robots, devices can be controlled and communicated, right, using PLC. PLC also has, you can think of a small device with small memory, and something can be programmed on this one. Now this PLC can connects to the IoT gateway. Why we need IoT gateway is that, you know if you want to remotely connect, that means it has to be connected to the internet. When you say internet of things, that means you have connected objects. That PLC then connects with an IoT gateway, and there are a lot of protocols based on, who is the manufacturer. And it can be an Ethernet protocol, it can be serial protocol. And if you can see that this IoT gateway might be having a wireless communication like Wi-Fi or 4G or 5G, that connects it into any cloud solution, right? And then one of the very common protocol is MQTT. MQTT is called publish and subscribe. So that means something interesting which can be published, and whoever is interested in getting this information can be subscribed for it, right? So whatever parameters are there, for example, for a robot, it can be, mm, its health data, or for trucks, if it is, speed or whatever information that can travel, and that can reach to an AL cloud. Now once you get this information, and these are real time information, you get it, right? That comes to a cloud. And once you have this information, you can a whole lot of things what you can do. For example, for each of these parameters you can define. For example, if there is a blast furnace, you can define that if a temperature goes to a certain degree, right, uh, alert or alarm can be raised. Or let's suppose if it is a pharma industry, the things have to be kept in a moisture free or in a particular temperature, otherwise it will not work. That means that information also can be captured, and an alert or notification can be sent. You can have different kinds of analytics, right? That's also possible that in that way. So now you're getting the data, right? Data is coming from actual, from the left hand side, from the actual plant, traveling through the cloud, and it's reaching into your mobile app or web app anywhere in this world. um, that's not only, that's a one way travel, but let's suppose, you know in a pharma industry, you need that the drugs has to be manufactured where the temperature should range between a certain values, and you get an alert that it's deviating from the range what is needed. You can give an instruction from the mobile phone, right, which again travel in the opposite direction, like from the cloud it goes to IoT gateway, it goes to PLC, and then PLC gives an instruction so that it can manage us. It's very similar to when you have an AC, right? It can you can adjust the temperature based on the feedback what you get. So this is how a typical context setting for how remote monitoring works. That means you setting, if you are a supervisor, you are an owner of the company, and you are responsible for multiple things, you are a technician, whoever you are, you can use this same mechanism. You can get all the information, and not only, for example, the health data of all the devices and the factories, but also production related information. Let's suppose if it is a uh, car manufacturing or car assembly plants, how many production are happening, everything you can get it in your fingertip by using this methodology. Now of course, you can see the writing back means you can give an instruction, so that's also possible. Bhakti, can you run it? Okay. So now you will be asking a question that how you make sure that it is secure, because a factory, automobile industry, or a pharma industry, or even an agriculture industry, right? Datas are very sensitive, right? So maybe about the concept of VPN. VPN is virtual private network. That means between your factory, between your devices, systems, or vehicle or utility, and where you are accessing, what you do is that you create a secured private virtual network, right? Means it is always secured, so no one can snoop into the your data, right? So that's been what has been shown here, right? That you created a VPN connection, and then not only you on the first part, upper part, you get that you're getting the data, and then you are giving an instruction, right? And then below you, what you are doing is that you are creating a VPN, and then you can configure everything, right? I told you that any hardware what you see, your smart TV or smart, there is hardware and there are some logics there. There are some configurations, so everything can be, you can do it sitting in the in your home. You connect it to the VPN, you give it to cloud, and then it travels to the IT gateway and PLC will then configure all the parameters for you. That means what, there are a lot of benefits for if you have to support, and you have to let's suppose you have 10 or 20 plants running over multiple places, right? You either you have to travel, go there, and then make those configuration and changes, or you can be remotely setting, connect you with your VPN, and can remotely set up everything. So that's what at a high level you can understand, in the sense how remotely you can manage everything. Now can you go back to the previous slide? So taking that into context, now you will be able to understand how there are different use cases and what are the benefits. Now the first one it shows is the utility network monitoring. Utility means either it can be water supply, right? Gas supply, electricity supply, those are all utilities, right? Now taking into account, for example, your electricity, you know that electricity is been there are three processes for the electricity. Electricity is first generated, right? Then it is transmitted, and then it is been distributed to each of the houses or to each of the factories where it is needed, right? Now there are a lot of infrastructure in between. Let's suppose if it is a solar plant, then there are a lot of sensors which we can put and can see that what is the health of each of the photovoltaic cells. What is the condition of the grid, right? Is there any break? If all the devices are working or not, the substations are working or not, it's finally reaching to each of the household or factories or not. So again, taking into same consideration that if you have remotely connected all your systems, right? That's the power of 5G in the sense, and most of the times it has been covered. You can connect, and you will be knowing about each and every aspects about the health of the whole system, about your grid, the production, generation of the electricity, and from end to end. Not only you get the information, once you get the information, you can control it remotely, and of course you can configure it also. Same thing with the plant monitoring. Either it can be an automobile industry, it can be a machine monitoring. For example, that in a particular industry, uh, uh, 50 to 60% of the devices are motors, right? So motors does many of the things. For example, it can move the arm of a robot, it can run the conveyor belt, and many other things, right? So the health of those motors are very important, right? So that is machine monitoring. And even you have a batch monitoring, which says you have multiple devices which can be monitored uh, remotely. Now what are the benefits? So first of all, of course, if there is a VPN tunneling, um, and which says that it is secured, right? So there is a very minimal cost in travel, and it reduces your time. And sometimes in pandemic situation, it happens that you are not allowed to travel also. So definitely it helps you a lot, because your business continuity is maintained, right? um, for example, if you have let's suppose far away, you have your farm, you have your greenhouse, where you have to maintain some vegetables or fruits are being grown. You have to put water at a certain point of time. You have to see that the temperature is okay or not, the moisture level is okay or not in the soil. Everything you can get it sitting in your home, right? And as you get more information, continuous information, you can take particular action. That means you can manage the moisture level in the ground by you know by starting watering, or you can manage the temperature. So everything is possible. What it again does is that based on the preventive and predictive maintenance, I'll come to it. It also reduces our unplanned downtime. So there are some planned downtime, because sometimes you have to replace something. Sometimes some maintenance purpose is there, so that's a planned downtime. But sometimes, let's suppose if something is not worked right, then it is unplanned time. So it also helps you to reduce it, because you're continuously getting the data, you're continuously getting the health of the information, you're continuously getting the production information, so you can reduce that one. um, as I told you that about internet has by default HTTP protocol, but in industry there are a lot of protocols, and it based on for pharma industry there are different protocols. For manufacturing there are different, for utility, for energy, there are so many protocols, right? So that makes it very difficult to one machine to communicate with another machines, right? So that is one of the biggest challenge in this industry. But as I told you, MQTT, one of the example I've told you from gateway to, those are industry level protocol. MQTT has been first created by IBM, and then it is open source, and now it is a de facto protocol. But of course, there are a lot of other protocols which are there. So that as IoT increases, right, the protocols are becoming more standard, and that's going to help. I told you about the data security. One was the VPN, but there are many other ways in which data securities are possible. For example, data can be encrypted before sending to the cloud. Then HTTPS has to be done. IP security is there, right? Then encryption. So there are a lot many things which we've been applied, because one of the main important thing about IoT, and IoT means you bring everything to cloud, because the cloud is becoming more cheaper and cheaper over time. So you have a lot of data, you can do a lot of analytics, right? But the problem is that uh, from the plants or from your area of operation to bringing it to the cloud, you want to make sure that the data is not being misused for any purpose, right? uh, so these are a few of the benefits of remote monitoring before sending to the cloud. Then HTTPS has to be done. IP security is there, right? Then encryption. So there are a lot many things which we've been applied, because one of the main important thing about IoT, and IoT means you bring everything to cloud, because the cloud is becoming more cheaper and cheaper over time. So you have a lot of data, you can do a lot of analytics, right? But the problem is that uh, from the plants or from your area of operation to bringing it to the cloud, you want to make sure that the data is not being misused for any purpose, right? uh, so these are a few of the benefits of remote monitoring. Can we go to the next slides? Next slide, I think. Now, two more thing I just wanted to tell about remote monitoring is, one is predictive monitoring and one is preventive monitoring, which is the next slide. Now you'll be asking, what's the difference between predictive monitoring and preventive monitoring? Predictive means, let's take an example that your robot is very important, uh, which is actually manufacturing, let's suppose your engine for the motor, right? Because those are so precise, you cannot do it with your hands, right? It is precise in millimeters, or 1,000th of the millimeter, right? And now those um robots are run by motors, right? Now if that motor is not working properly, right, then whole production will stop, because if the engines are not being produced, you cannot make any automobile, right? So predictive maintenance, what it does is that, as I told you, that you have sensors. From sensors, you are continuously getting the data. Now this data is being fed to an artificial intelligence or machine learning, right, which has an intelligence to know that because based on many of the things, like what vibration it is producing, what is the heat it is generating, uh, you know uh, thermal imaging, all those information are there. And artificial intelligence or machine learnings try to predict if it is going to fail in the coming future, right? And if there is a high probability which says that, okay, this might it might fail in the coming days, then what it does is that, and it, you can raise a ticket. It can be assigned to a technician, and technician either going to the factory or remotely, that's also possible, right? They can look into it, and before actually it fails, it can be repaired. That means it can avoid that unplanned stoppage of the of the production. So that's predictive maintenance. So most of those predictive maintenance are used using highly sophisticated AI and machine learning algorithm. Now going back to the diagram, just to make you understand each of the steps. So on the left hand side, what you have is different assets, right? It can be a motor, it can be a robot, or whatever is there, that we collect information through sensors, PLC. HMI is human machine interface. That means, if you're in a factory premise, then you can really see, for example, all the parameters. So those discrete parameters are continuously captured, and then it comes to the gateway. You get the data, right? And those data, what happens is that that machine learning models are there, those information are continuously fed, right? And this model, machine learning, if it predicts that this machine is going to fail in the coming days and the production will stop, at that moment of time, what it can do is that it can automatically raise a ticket, right? That's the third line, what has been sent on a real time based on the conditions for a particular time. When a ticket has been assigned, you can assign a particular SLA, because these machines are sometimes very critical, right? For example, if it is a nuclear power plant, right? If something is happening, the temperature is rising, it might blast, right? So action has to be taken, right? Boron roads or something have to be, you have to decrease the reaction time. So an SLA has been provided, which says that, you have to respond it in 15 minutes, and restore it in 1 hour, or whatever is there, automatically based on the when availability of a technician together with his skills, he can be assigned. And it will be told that, within 1 hour you have to do it remotely. He can log in and then can start looking into it, and then he may make necessary changes which can lead to, for example, change in the parameters, taking some actions, or even it needs replacement of the hardware. Of course, if the replacement of the hardware has to be done, then it cannot be done remotely. They have to go. But then, it can avoid production loss, unplanned production wastages and other things. And also it helps you to, some catastrophe which might be possible, that can be also avoided. So this is predictive maintenance, or predictive monitoring, right? Can you, Bhakti, go to the next slide? Now there is another one which is called preventive. Now it is slightly different. What it does is that, in previous one, it was reactive. That means, sorry, it is predicted, and then it has been done. It reacts on a particular situation. Preventive means you prevent it from happening. That means, I don't whenever a particular asset is there. When I say asset, it can be, let's suppose, the robot. Whenever it is there in a predefined time, it has been allocated that, someone will come check everything, right? And make sure that, everything is working. That means before it happens, periodically, maybe every 15 days, or every 30 days, or every 3 months, 6 months, once in a year, based on how critical the system is and how frequently it needs maintenance, right? That has been done. Now what's the difference between these two? you know um, if you think about a particular factory, let's take an automobile factory, which is huge, and there are tens and thousands of an assets, right? These maintenance are being given to any maintenance company, right? And even though the machines are working properly, right, you have to have, maintenance has been done. That means you have a fixed cost, and generally the costs are very high, right? Whereas predictive maintenance, what it does is that you call a technician only when it is needed, right? So certainly it has an advantage, right? In some of the cases, if it is very critical, both can be done. So that's also possible, right? So these are, uh, two other ways in which you can have remote monitoring, and to make sure that your assets are healthy. Can you move to the next slide? Now, there are a lot of benefits of remote monitoring and help desk. So one is, of course, it saves travel cost. But sometimes instead of travel cost, as I told you, in pandemic situations, it is also possible that you cannot travel itself. So instead of, you know, stopping everything, you can still run your business with that. um, you have a strict SLA and escalation. That means if it is very critical, you can raise ticket, and if it has not been done, it can be escalated, using SMS or whatever. Your superior can be informed about it. It helps you for on-time maintenance of all your assets. It sends a reminder in case SLA deadline are approaching. You can also monitor your not only the health of your assets, but also production details. Let's suppose you have to produce 10,000 cars in a particular factory in a day. You can see that, is it happening properly or not. If it is not happening, what might be the reason. So everything you will get it, by sitting in the home, in your mobile phone or tablet. And also you can have a proper management of assets and the plants, right? So that's at a high level understanding of remote monitoring. So maybe I'm open for any questions you have.
Yes. So thank you, Sandeep. That was a really nice and encouraging session. I request our audience to put in their questions in the Q&A box, as we are open for the same. So please put in your questions for us. So
Mhm.
is remote monitoring secure?
Yeah, it is secure, but you know um, there are different level of security. As I told you, internet of thing is, at a very high level, it is different machine talking to each other, right? And then based on the data what you get, you make an intelligent decision where human interface is not needed. As time progresses and AI improves, that is there. Now when one machine talks to another, there are lot of security mechanism possible. For example, I told you about the VPN. I told you about the encryption is there, cryptography. There are many things which has been done, right? Again, all of those have a cost associated it. When I say cost, that means, if you encrypt the data on one side, send it, then you have to decrypt the information, right? And if this information is very critical, and it should reach as quickly as possible, then your cost increases, because on one side it have to encrypt it, other it has to be decrypted. But yes, it is possible. Security, you can make it as secure as possible, right? Is it hackable? Yes, it is, because anything which is in the internet can be hackable. So there is always a risk associated with that. And for me, there are a lot of opportunities as IoT become more, today your phone is being connected. There are a lot of ways to secure it. But when there will be so many devices which comes to the internet, right? There are a lot of opportunities for companies which are working on securities, for the people who wants to make a career on the security, look into that aspects, that it's not only your mobile phone or your server or laptop which needs protection, but tomorrow there are thousands and thousands of tiny devices which have very low memory, low processing power compared to your phone, but then those also need to be secured.
What measures are taken to make remote monitoring secure?
There are a lot of measures. VPN is one of the virtual private networks. So whatever the data and instructions what you are sending, we do it with uh, in a virtual private network, right? That's the one thing. Second thing is that you can encrypt the data before sending it, right? Third is the tunnel what you create, right, that can be secured using IPsec. So that is third protection. um, it's not related to production, but sometimes what we do is also we compress the message. That means that in 5G or whatever is there, it can travel through wire, it can also travel through air, right? Radio waves. So the lesser the data, more fast it will. So compression will of course not increase the security, but that's also can be done. Then we have other methods also. Firewall is there and other things which can also help you to protect your data, your devices, and your network.
Okay. So my next question is, what is the difference between preventive and predictive maintenance?
um, Predictive maintenance, as I told you, that you predict something, right? What it does, whereas a preventive maintenance is uh, something which has been scheduled over a period of time, and repeated, so that you make sure that your assets and your systems are working properly, right? So that's the main difference between them. Cost wise it is different, as I told you. um, Predictive maintenance over a long period of time is less costly because you do maintenance only when it is needed, whereas preventive maintenance, it will be done uh, on a predefined time or predefined period, irrespective of everything working properly. The In predictive maintenance, it depends on your algorithm. If it produces false positive, that means although uh, there is a problem, but it tells that there is no problem. That might be possible because it runs on an algorithm. It has certain, if 80% accuracy is there, it can, out of 10 times, 2 times it may give a false positive, right? So that is one of the side backs of preventive maintenance, and that's why preventive and predictive sometimes are done together, but only for the very critical systems, right? So these are some of the differences between predictive and preventive maintenance.
Yes. So my next question is, what are the challenges for the adoption of IoT?
Yeah, I think the one of the biggest challenges what I feel uh, for the adoption of IoT is um definitely the lack of knowledge. It's very complex when you go more into depth. What I have explained is just scratching the surface, because I don't want it to make it very complex. One of them is that I told you that there are different. Today, if you want to deploy e-commerce website, there are 2 or 3 protocols like HTTP or FTP or SSH, and you are pretty much done. That's not the case uh, uh, um, with IoT. In IoT, as far as I know, I have worked with 400 different protocols. If the domain changes, the protocol changes, right? So it's very difficult. Let's suppose I showed you PLC, then gateway, to talk to between these two based on which kind of manufacturers it is. For example, if it is Siemens, then the protocol it supports, it's Profinet and Profibus, right? If it is Rockwell, then it supports Ethernet IP. So there are a lot many protocols. So that is one of the challenges. Security, of course, is one of the biggest challenges for very sensitive industries like pharma industry. right? They have a lot of regulations from the countries where they export, right? If it has been hacked, or something malfunction happens with these automation systems, it is a not only detrimental to the company, but also, let's suppose, to the people, if it is unattended. So security is very important, right? The other thing is that, although we have a lot of sensors and everything, but still we need it. um, Also, you don't find any developers community, right? Today, if you see, for your mobile phone, you'll get so many developers. You want to create an app, you get a lot of APIs from Google, right? You can immediately start. Um, uh, if you have certain ideas, you can use Google Maps, you can use different databases and other things, and you can come up with a very innovative app. Today, if you want to start something on IoT, you have a certain ideas. It's very difficult, you will not get APIs. There is no enough documentations for this one. So that's one of another challenge to it, right? And lastly, what I can say is that, it is a combination of both hardware and the software, right? Hardware has to also progress, software has to also progress. So that there, the synergy between these two, I find lacking. For example, your mobile phone, let's take that example, right? um, People start liking mobile games, right? Once they started, or AR, VR, many things are there, right? And that influenced how, you have different cameras and accelerometer, and and it influences each other, right? Means the demand in the software improves the hardware, and improvement in the hardware, you bring a lot of softwares. So that doesn't happen here. I'll give you one example. Now, either you develop an uh, app for iOS or for Android, right? The inherent protocol is always same. You can use the same API, Google API, both for Android devices and for iOS. That's not the case with hardware. What is manufactured? Siemens is there, Rockwell is there, Mitsubishi is there. So you don't get, everyone talks different language, different protocols. So it's difficult to have that one. So that synergy is missing. So these are some of the challenges which needs to be addressed, and there are a lot of opportunities of this in coming futures. Just like what Apple and Google has disrupted, uh, you know um, the mobile industry, in the sense with a lot of apps and how useful they are. Similar potential is there in case of in IoT also.
And yes, yes, definitely. End of our Q&A session then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sandeep, for your session. It was really encouraging, and we learned a lot about IoT. And thank you, everyone, for your precious time. Take care. God bless, and have a nice time ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.